We might get kicked off. Welcome everyone to the I2N's virtual hub. My name's Siobhan Curran and I'm the manager of the University of Newcastle's Integrated Innovation Network, or I2N. I acknowledge that I'm hosting this virtual event from the lands of the Awabakal and the Worimi people. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you all work today and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this event. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of Australia. For those of you who are new to I2N, we're all about boosting economic growth and diversity through entrepreneurship and innovation in the Hunter region. We fuel the success of innovators and entrepreneurs, be they students, staff, alumni and the wider community, to help them build great ventures, connecting them to community coaching, customers and capital through our innovation hubs and programs. So the I2N manages two co-working spaces, I2N Hub Hunter Street and I2N Hub Williamtown, with I2N Hub Honeysuckle scheduled to open in mid-2021, which we're really excited about. Within those hubs, we offer a range of programs developed to cover the 5 stages of venture growth, from enterprise skill development and ideation for emerging entrepreneurs and innovators through to incubator for scale-ups. So normally we'd be delivering this monthly event, Startup Stories, at one of our 2 hubs, but times have changed, as we know, and here we are gathered in our virtual hub. We've taken a number of questions from attendees at registration, and we'll be leading with those after our speaker provides a brief background on their startup journey. And then we'll open up to any questions that have been asked via the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. And you can also upvote questions in that Q&A box as well. So one good thing about the virtual events is that I don't need to point you to the bathrooms or the fire exits. Either you're at home, working from home, or you're in the office already, so you should know the drill. Maybe 1 or 2 of you might even be zooming in on your phone while you're driving or on public transport. If you are, thank you for the dedication. Our guest this morning is Josh Jeffress, a Newcastle entrepreneur and founder of Design Anthology, which is a design agency that is helping people translate their ideas into products. Since its inception, Design Anthology has grown rapidly. The team has expanded to 6 and they've delivered over 100 projects across aeronautics, medical devices, consumer electronics and more. And they have enjoyed numerous accolades and wins for their innovation and design, most recently picking up the Hunter Manufacturing's Excellence in Innovation and Lake Macquarie's Excellence in Small Business. We're really proud to be able to have a company like Design Anthology located here within the Hunter, servicing local startups, SMEs and large corporates being able to develop new products to market. Josh regularly contributes to the local ecosystem here as a part-time lecturer, speaker and valued mentor as part of the university's venture mentoring service. So I'm going to hand it over now to Josh, and I really want to thank you for taking time out in this busy period at the end of financial year to share your story with us. So over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks Siobhan and Richard for the opportunity to present today. Yeah, as Siobhan said, I'm just going to quickly give you a bit of an overview of some of the startup journey that we've had with Design Anthology, the good, the bad and the ugly. So I'll get right into it. I'll share my screen. Okay, hopefully I can see that now.
Yep, that's working great. Thanks, Josh.
So just a bit of background on where we started. I'd always had a dream to start a product design consultancy after having worked in a trade background and training as an industrial designer at the Newcastle University. To be quite honest, I got a fair kickstart in 2009 due to the GFC and a redundancy. I just actually been recently married and funds are really tight, and I remember coming home that day and just being totally and utterly in crisis, I suppose. It really took a toll on my perceived value, and I really didn't know where to go from that point. I remember sitting at the back table with Amy, my wife, and she reassured me that this was an opportunity, not a problem, and not like, you know, the world will continue on. So day one of being unemployed, I picked myself up off the floor and decided to actually go back to my previous employer and ask them essentially for a contract. I'd identified that there was some projects that needed to get done, and they had no resources for it. So I was successful in negotiating a contract agreement that I could go back and finish those projects and other projects. And also, I actually asked the question whether I could actually get access to and promote some of the jobs that I'd worked on for the past 7 years as a product designer and design manager at a local company called Banlaw. What we did with that is we actually used that to create case studies and also portfolio items, which was really, really helpful as we move forward. And I suppose that success actually created a bit of an idea that there may actually be other companies out there that also had this same problem. And we got busy basically doing a bit of cyber stalking, ringing family and friends and colleagues and asking for introductions, and going out there and actually meeting these people. Now, that was very daunting for me at the time because essentially I had no business or sales experience, and no family history of any of those sort of skill sets. So I was flying fairly blind, and to be quite honest, I was in a bit of a vulnerable state. So every time I'd meet with someone, I'd have to take the deep breaths and try and appeal that, you know, essentially that I wasn't in a total state of disarray. What these meetings did, though, was identify that there was opportunities to offer these services to other companies, and essentially that's what we did. We kind of came up with a pitch and an offering, and that in turn created more business opportunities, and Design Anthology was essentially up and running. If that all sounds too easy, then it was. You know, starting a business is hectic, to say the least. I had to learn on the fly all the time, you know, from accounting to marketing to web development, all of these other disciplines that weren't my core discipline. We had to learn really, really quickly. About 3 months in, I took a position as a project manager and a production engineer part-time to basically facilitate the growth of the business. And that actually meant essentially working 16 hours every day of the week to maintain my customers and build Design Anthology, but also maintain that high level of a service for my employer. One of the great things that this process has done for our business in starting from nothing is it's actually enabled us to be very ruthless with our decision-making process. We essentially had no money, and we had a very short period in which we could actually get this company to actually be successful. Otherwise, we're going to lose our house and all the other fun things that comes around that. So basically, I just worked and worked and worked. We're ruthless about every cent that we spent. One of the things that we've been very good at from the very beginning is we've always had multiple plans and a strategy in place. So if things didn't return on the investment or it didn't work out the way that we thought it would, we were very ruthless in the way that we cut that, and we would pivot and go to plan B, C, D, or E, or F, you know, in some sort of instances. I suppose the other thing, it actually required a lot of sacrifice. You know, I worked a lot, which meant there was sacrifices that had to happen around that, and also the money that we did gain had to be reinvested into the business to employ staff and, you know, essentially purchase hardware and offices and workshops and all the rest of that stuff as we grew. Essentially, we continued to grow, which was fantastic. We had some good years, we had some bad years, but I think the main thing that we learned through that process is if you really do listen to your customer or our client and their customer, and you really can understand the pain points and identify opportunities, that enables you then to essentially offer solutions, and that's what we do. Part of that sort of identified that our customers actually needed additional services that we didn't offer. So we went out there and met with people. We did a lot of coffee marketing. We kind of met with people from other disciplines and worked out what they were good at and what their passions were, so that we could form great partnerships. Another key thing that really drives us, is probably a little bit like a drug to myself and Matt, is that we love the response of our customers when we wow them, essentially. So people come in with an idea and we turn that idea into something spectacular, and we present that back to them so that they essentially are wowed. Now, we also understood that wow factor had to have substances. We're not artists, we're very commercially focused. So we had to always have that strategy, that go-to-market strategy, that underpinned these essentially pretty pictures, which they aren't, but that's what we had to deliver. So we looked at rolling out plans for our customers that took them all the way from, yes, you've got a concept, but how are you going to get that into manufacture, and how are you going to market it, and how are you going to get your customers to essentially buy that product and create revenue streams for you. Part of this process also identified, within starting in that GFC climate, that if you didn't diversify, you would die. So we made a very strategic decision early on in the business to diversify the industries that we service, so that we had essentially a broad offering, but also there's benefits to that in that we have learnings from lots of different industries, and there's lots of opportunities to cross-pollinate. So it's very relevant to the current environment with COVID-19, because some businesses have just gone from having great revenue streams to having nothing. So in saying that, I suppose the main thing that I'd like to encourage people is that there's always opportunities out there. With any downturn, there's always companies that are doing well, and I think that's probably the trick. So as we've grown, we've increased our capabilities and the services we offer to include workshops and branding and marketing and video and manufacturing. So we've got now a factory, and we've got a lot of manufacturing hardware that essentially helps us to move rapidly, because that's really what we're about. And the other, I suppose, what I wanted to do at the very end of this, because I haven't got a lot of time and I've got a little video to show you, is, after 12 years, I think the things that have remained true was reputation is everything. So you've got to remember that when you're starting out, that you're only as good as the last job that you've delivered. And if you deliver great things to people, they'll refer you. And then if you have that referral, then it's really easy to convert that into a paying customer. You've got to excel at everything. The other thing that we've really learned, I think, which is very undervalued in business, is communication is king. We essentially take someone's idea, which is essentially their baby, and we are responsible for taking it through a journey to get it to market. Now, one of the things that we didn't do well to start with is we were bad at communicating. We were just focused on actually doing the job, and we found that made our customers very, very nervous, because they didn't know where we're up to. So one of the things that we're really, I suppose, committed to is essentially making sure that we communicate regularly, so people know where they're up to, and if there's any problems, they know that we've identified the problem and that we have a strategy to fix that problem. So that's one of the key things that's probably undervalued in a lot of businesses, actually. So from marketing to actually to daily reporting, it's really, really important. The other thing is, be ruthless with the decisions you make. Doesn't matter how big you get, you really need to evaluate every decision whether you're actually getting a return on that investment. Amy, my wife, who basically is the chief strategist behind our business, really outlined that we're not ruthless with people. We formulate really, really good relationships, but what we are ruthless is with the decisions that we make around how we're going to get them from point A to point B efficiently. So there's no delays, and that we also understand that time to market is really, really important. So, sometimes we'll cut and run from one idea because it just doesn't work. Because everything we're doing essentially is we're creating things, physical things that have never existed before. The other thing I'd like to say is, an encouragement is, if you're going to go down this journey, essentially train yourself to have that grit and determination, because you'll need it. You'll need to sort of put in when everyone else is sitting at home having a great time or out having a great time. You'll have to do the hard work, and that's what it's about. It doesn't come for free, but it does pay off in the long run. So what I'm going to show you now quickly, I may have run through that a little bit fast, but essentially what I'm going to do is show you a quick video that shows you a little bit of, it shows you probably the range and the diversity of products we've designed, a bit of a snapshot, and the quality in which we deliver. So that's a bit of a snapshot about our journey so far. I hope I haven't gone too far over time, and looking forward to answering some of the questions. Back to you, Siobhan.
Thanks. Sorry. I thought I pressed mute then. I can never get this right. Thank you so much, Josh. I'm glad I had my headphones on, because that audio with that video was as beautiful as the products that were being featured. I do have a couple of questions. If you wanted to pop your video back on, Josh, we'll be able to dive into some questions. So thank you so much for that amazing overview of, I guess, the lessons learned and the principles you might apply, I guess, if you were giving advice to someone who is thinking about starting a new business. A lot of the questions that we received when people were registering were really the nuts and bolts of how the business actually operates. So before we dive into those specific questions, we did have a couple of questions from some emerging entrepreneurs. One is Fazil Mohammed. He's a student at the University of Newcastle, and he's asking a pretty broad, like a pretty interesting question. And I'm not sure if there's a right answer for this, but I think your perspective on this might be really useful. Is there an ideal age to consider founding a startup?
I thought about that question. I actually don't think there is. I think it's more about, are you ready for the sacrifices it requires, essentially? Do you have the grit and the determination? And it's also really helpful to have some experience and a broad range of experience when you start a startup. So yeah, I think any time's good. You just have to start.
And I think too, being thrown into a position like you were with the GFC and being, you know, having to find another opportunity to be able to make a living, you know, necessity often dictates when that opportunity arises too, I guess, right?
Definitely, definitely.
Jessica Rose, who's from Callaghan College at Waratah, she asks, what advice would you give school-age students regarding a career in startup?
Yeah, that's a bit of a hard one. Look, I mean, personally, I think one of my strengths is I've had like 15 or 16 jobs before I started a startup. So I had a broad range of experience and exposure to lots of different activities and different businesses, and you kind of get to see the good and the bad and the ugly. I would say that experience is really, really important. but also just volunteering and being part of this sort of ecosystem and learning from people, asking questions. Honestly, one of the key things that I learned through this whole process is you have to ask, and it's really nerve-wracking. But you know what? Most of the time, if you ask, people will actually respond really, really positively.
Yeah, we find that a lot as well. Actually, I actually say it to my kids who are in primary school and high school. Teachers actually love being asked questions. That's their job. But also they know that then you're engaged and you're interested. And that's really impressive for employers as well. And I'd sort of add to your question there too around opportunities for work experience and work integrated learning if you go to university or even at TAFE to be able to do an apprenticeship. Skills on the job is just the best way you can get that great experience.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, is work ethic is really, really, really important for an employer going through that startup journey. Even now, like it's probably the most important thing that we look for is, essentially, what's your work ethic? Are you going to hit a wall and stop, or are you going to bounce and come up with other solutions? It's like, are you a solution provider, or are you just going to stop? Because if you stop, you just won't last in a startup. So, yeah.
Yeah, we actually take on a fair few work integrated learning students from the university and many of the startups that work from our co-working space, and they often use that opportunity, as in the startups, to identify talent, and then often when those students graduate, they will be the first hires or the second, third, fourth, fifth hires of those startups. So it's a really good opportunity to impress and be switched on all the time.
Most definitely.
Mark Bigland, who's a postdoc at the universities, asked, what are the best methods for founders to maintain a share in their ideas?
Look, that's a really good question. I'm probably not the right person to answer that in lots of regards. I would be suggesting that the best person to talk to would be Trent Bagnall around that. He's got some tricks. He's got a whole bag of tricks. I mean, I'm aware of them. I think my advice on that is, it's also important to understand that an idea has no value until it's commercialized. So if you sit on an idea for 60 years, worried that someone's going to take a share of your company or too large a share of your company, then it's probably a bad business decision, essentially. So, it's better to make some money than make nothing. So that would be my recommendation, is go and talk to Trent Bagnall, talk to people like that actually understand term sheets and all those sorts of intricate contractual agreements. But I think the main thing is, just don't get focused on getting ripped off, get focused on getting it out to the market.
I think that's really great advice. And for anyone who doesn't know, Trent Bagnall is the co-founder of Slingshot. He also operates the Melt Accelerator at Lake Macquarie, Warners Bay. And that's an accelerator that's focused on developing out products. So if you're a person who has an idea for an actual product as opposed to a software-based idea, it's definitely worthwhile checking out their website to get more information on their program. So in terms of, if we look now a little bit more at the nitty-gritty of the business aspects, we've got some questions here. One's from Rhiannon at Newey Ventures. She asks, what compelled you to go out on your own and build your own industrial design business? So we've heard a little bit about that this morning in regards to the situation you were sort of put into, but is there anything you wanted to add around what compelled you to do it on your own rather than look for another job elsewhere?
Well, I think necessity was one of the key drivers, but I think even before that, I had it was a burning passion of mine, and I'd seen that there was an opportunity, especially within the Hunter region, because there's a lot of smarts in the Hunter region, but I think the key opportunity that we identified was people were bad at the last 5%. They were bad at the actual finishing of the product, the interface of the product. Even it's one of the things we specialize in is optimization of the manufacturing process. Now that can make you hundreds and hundreds of dollars on increased revenue, like thousands, and huge percentages. And I think that's what we identified. They're sort of stuck in a very old world mindset. Now, I understood that mindset because I came from trade, but my background also was advanced manufacturing. So I also understood what it could be. So to answer that question, we definitely saw an opportunity, and it's a great location. People are friendly, people are open. There's the smarts, and also there's also that manufacturing pedigree. It just needed some updates. So
yeah, well, you can certainly tell that just with the beautiful design of your products as well. They're just finished off beautifully.
Yeah.
There's a question here from Mark Huang, who's asking, we know that failures get you closer to success. However, sometimes it's tough to recover from past failure. Is there any advice you can share on how to quickly recover and move on?
I think the key thing is don't have just one plan, because if you have all the eggs in one basket, then failure can be catastrophic, if that makes sense. So my suggestion is, like, one of the things we do is we'll always have multiple contingency plans. So failure is like, look, our business, we don't actually have a lot of room to failure. Failure for us could put us out of business. So we have to have a robust system to mitigate that as much as possible and make those failures as small as possible, and essentially make them as soon as possible. So as soon as possible and as small as possible. And you've got to be pragmatic. You've not got to get stuck on them. I think a lot of people get stuck on their failure and don't see that they've actually got a way out of that. And time is essential. So
what do you do in terms of reflecting on mistakes or failures and kind of keeping in mind, when you're doing future jobs, how you mitigate those? Like, is there some kind of process, is it just in the back of your head, or are you just, is there some kind of debrief that you do at the end of every project where you might say, all right, this went wrong and that went wrong. Let's let's put some stuff in place to avoid that happening again? Or is it just a very natural process?
It is natural. I mean, our team's only 8, so we've grown to 8 now. Obviously, as you grow, that becomes harder, but we are jammed in the one room, so that's a good and a bad thing. But essentially, we've created a culture where we're like, if there's a problem, you put your hand up, and we make the decision very, very quickly. Yes, we capture it. So we use Asana. We've got a project, like basically a plan from initial interaction all the way through to delivery, but we also have subcategories for improvement. So we're all about improvement. So, for instance, if something's taking too long, I want to know about it, and then I'll throw money at it. I'll put time to it. Essentially, we're all about efficiency. So hopefully that answers your question, I suppose. We do have a formal process of capturing problems, and we also have a formal process of identifying solutions. So, but they evolve, and sometimes old problems come back, looking slightly different, So
Yeah. You can kind of start seeing the patterns, though, I guess, emerge too. Yeah. And
well, I think it's just being
get better at identifying them. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just being quick. And I think that's what I've sort of said to our team is, I'm happy to spend money on anything, essentially, if you can justify to me there's a problem and you've got a solution that's going to make things better, essentially, for our customers. So it's just, I think, being open to that.
I've got a question here from Kieran Egan, who's a student at the university. He's asking, does Design Anthology help clients with services outside of design, for example, e-commerce or marketing? You touched on briefly how you might help with, production.
So our service offering is quite diverse. So we offer lots of different services. So from workshops, which essentially create a snapshot of what it could be, and put together a bit of a roadmap, through to lots of times we have to do a logo because the logo is terrible and we can't actually put the product. And we actually just do it because Matt, my great friend and colleague, he's exceptional at that stuff. He's exceptional at finishing things, and lots of times we don't get paid for that. We just go, you know what, it's just actually needed, and we need to do it right now, so we just do it. And I suppose the other services we offer is manufacturing expertise, kickstart campaigns, marketing strategies, service design. You know, we've created websites for people. We're very pragmatic. We're very early stage, so we're not trying to take away from other disciplines. What we're trying to do is essentially make sure the outcomes are very good for our clients. So we might say, we're going to create you a basic logo, and we're going to create you a Squarespace launch page. This is only going to work for this amount of time. So you need to realise that that's only going to work for a very limited amount of time, and we're going to put you in contact with someone that can help you to build that e-commerce website later on down the track. So it's all about identifying the key stages and then rolling that out through the whole process. So yes, we've had to become very diverse.
I think too, when you invest, you obviously have such a passion for design and product design and development. You want to give it the best chance of success, right? So you're just as invested in this. It's not just the idea of, trying to get from the client the idea that's in their head and actually build the product, but then you actually want to see it have commercial success, right? So it's really interesting to see how you're giving them that little springboard at the end to push it out into the market, and make sure that they're on brand and have that web presence as well, because it's often I come from a marketing background, so I think setting up a website is actually really easy to do, but it's surprising how many people who have great ideas don't have those marketing and communication skills, and just that little springboard to help them, I think, is just so critically valuable. So, and it wasn't something I was aware that you did, so I think that's amazing.
Well, I think Siobhan, the reason we do it is because, yes, we are invested. Like, we throw everything into these projects. And we want to see them succeed, but we've also seen what happens if we don't assist through that process. That we work with a lot of inventive people. The problem with that is they're very focused on their solution and not on their customer and on how they're going to get it into the customer's hands. So what you find sometimes is that people go through this whole development process, get to the end and go, oh crap, I can't get my domain name. I haven't got a website. I have no marketing material. I don't even know what my pitch would be. And then that takes another 6 to 18 months to actually get traction. And in that time, potentially another customer comes in and destroys that opportunity. So that's why we do it, essentially.
Yeah, it's good to get them thinking on that earlier. I guess it's like people who build a house and then forget about the furniture inside or the landscaping outside. It's you got to keep going, right?
You do.
We've got a question here again from Kieran. Different Kieran Glasgow, who's an industrial designer. Could you roughly explain your workflow from meeting with a customer to manufacturing, and in particular, how and what software is used along that journey?
Okay, so that's a bit of a hard question to summarise, but essentially we have a phase-by-phase process. So essentially our customers, so for instance, if we get a lead, it all goes into Asana, it all gets tracked, we follow them up, we meet with them, we offer them it really depends. It's really hard to answer that question because our clients are very diverse as well, like their mums and dads. They're small to medium enterprises, and they're nationals and multinationals. So it really depends on the client and what their requirements are. But essentially what happens is they come in the door, we meet with them, we offer them potentially a workshop, or first stage would be concept development. So we do a deep dive, we understand, we pick the whole thing apart, like we did with Orica. We pulled it to pieces and we put it back together in a very different manner. And then we pitch it back to them. So basically first deliverable is a concept, and a strategy on how that's going to make them money. So then they can get key stakeholders, or they can go out to market and get market feedback at that point, which is really, really important, because we also don't want to see people invest money and lose money. So from that point, we go into detailed design. Sometimes we'll identify that there will be a key component that we need to validate. So we may pull that component out and we'll validate just that part. We'll prototype it. We'll create manufacturing drawings, 3D files, all those sorts of things, jigs, fixtures. It's very comprehensive. Find a manufacturer, look, for Orica, we're doing the ongoing manufacturing for Orica because they've seen, like, my background means that we're extremely anal retentive about the quality. So we manage that process. So it's end to end essentially. Yeah, if that makes sense. Software, anything that works, SolidWorks, Fusion 360. We use, what do we use for rendering? So we use a lot of different packages for rendering, 3D Max. Oh, look, it's Adobe, Photoshop, Illustrator. It's really broad, to be quite honest. There's so many different software programs that we use that it's really hard to summarize. So essentially, yet again, pragmatic, whatever works.
Yeah, there's particularly for product management too. There's new options coming out all the time, so it's hard to just stick with one.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's honestly, that's probably the biggest challenge at the moment. That for us, there's so many different communication platforms that you just get lost. I mean, there's a great opportunity out there for someone to actually create something that takes all of them and just puts it into one place, because it is confusing. You know, like we run 14 projects at a time. We've got hundreds of customers, and you know, they've all got a unique platform, and it's like, oh, I remember them, you know, saying something, and where is that now? You know.
Yeah. No, I hear you. We at the university, we just had to transition everything over to Microsoft, and SharePoint's a new thing for us, and Teams, and we've just got used to Zoom. So it's like, my God, could there be another platform? Probably.
Slack. Yeah.
Yep.
It goes on, I think. But you know, you've got to have experience. That's the end of the day.
Yeah. You got to just find what works for you on the team, I suppose.
Yeah, most definitely.
I've got a question here from Pat O'Flaherty. He's asking, how many people do you employ and how do you recruit for your team?
Okay, so we currently employ 8 people. So a broad range of skill sets. The main requirement is you can wear multiple hats multiple times a day, because it's not chaos. It looks like chaos. It's a controlled chaos. Currently it's word of mouth, realistically. That's what it comes down to. We get referred people, and from essentially people that we trust, we interview them, and we go from there. We are, as our business has grown, we are now working on our culture, and we're putting in place like performance management to make sure we're getting the best out of all the staff members, and making sure we're touching base, and if there are roadblocks, then, you know, working towards moving those. And also that core culture will establish who we employ into the future, because it is actually really difficult to work in our business, because it's like there is a lot going on, and these projects are large and complex. So when you're running 14 of them all the time at one time, it's not for everyone. Let's just say that.
Does that impact your ability to scale? Are you careful about how you balance, you know, taking on lots of jobs and therefore having to employ more people, and losing that the ability to be able to see across the project from start to finish? Is that a really hard thing to manage? And do you think it's specific to product design or not?
I think it's specific to anything. I mean, software and product design aren't that dissimilar in the steps that you take to reach the end goal. We look, at the end of the day, it is hard. It's hard from a founder, to be quite honest. Yeah. It's hard to let go a little bit. I'll be entirely honest around that. It is, because up until this point, I've worn lots of different hats. You know, like I've been designing, and I've been managing, and I've been procuring, and all those facets, you know, had sort of fallen on my shoulders. And we've got a great team now, so it means that I don't have to do that. But it also means you've got to trust that team. So coming down to who you employ, I have to trust them 100% that they're going to have my back and deliver. Because when I go to a customer and say, we're going to do this, it has to be done. Like there's no room for error. So, you know, I think that management of projects is a challenge. But one of the things that we've done is we're in a factory with another company, And what that enables us to do, they've been hit a little bit with the COVID-19, and we've got such a great working relationship with them that we now feed them work and they're literally out the door. So, so they basically are doing, they're doing assembly and CNC routing and all those sorts of things, and it's literally 3 steps away. So that's the way we manage it, because we trust. They know the quality. They know what we expect. It's pretty easy.
This kind of ties in, and there might be some overlap here with a question that Glenn Downey's asked, which is, do you have any thoughts around how you could scale your expertise to a larger market with more customers?
Yes, so that's where we're going next. Definitely got lots of ideas. I think one of the key things that we've identified was the workshops. I think that's, for us, is probably one of the best things we've done. The workshop and fixed costs. So corporates love fixed costs. They love set deliverables. They can, right? No one in our industry offers that. We are the only one to offer. It's difficult. Like, there's a whole heap of risk, which means we've got to be super efficient and on the ball. But essentially what that does is that will enable us to grow. Our goal is to start, moving into some of these markets that we haven't currently moved in, especially Sydney. I mean, it's right on our doorstep. We've taken some projects off some of the larger design firms in Sydney because we have offered different services and a different approach, I think. So we're very real and down to earth. Like, we won't, if someone has a bad idea, I will actually tell them that they should invest, which, is another story, but,
Do you mean invest in doing more customer discovery, or?
I think even if I thought it was a really bad idea, I would say, don't go down this path, go and get another idea. That sounds really brutal, but
no, I think it's great, because it's nothing we hate more than seeing people who come to us at I2N saying, I've got the patents, the prototype's being developed offshore, or I've got some coders in somewhere else, building out this app for us. We just don't know who our customer is. Well, we think we know, but we're not sure. And we're like, oh my God, how much money have you spent? And they've spent a lot of money. And to find then that when they put the product into market, that the customer they thought would love it doesn't love it as much as they thought. And that's a world of pain for those people, because it's a failure that's really hard to bounce back from. It's different if you go out to market or you go to speak to potential customers to get insights about the problem that they have and the potential solution you have to deliver against it. If you find in those conversations that it's not aligning, what have you wasted some time? And those insights they're giving you are actually helping you to develop a better idea at the end of the day. So it goes into a better product development later.
Yeah, I think honesty is really important, I think, in this industry, because, I mean, like I said in the last slide, reputation is really important for us. We've done ourselves out of hundreds of thousands of dollars by being honest. We did that with Evergen. We did all the cost modelling and the preparation for mass manufacture, and I walked into the board meeting saying, you shouldn't do it. Like, the battery technology is changing too rapidly. By the time we arrive at that point, then there's a huge risk that all of that tooling investment may be for nothing. So, and they were shocked. To be quite honest, they were shocked that I would say that to them. And I said, look, it's not in my best interest, it's in your best interest not to do this. So I think, that's an amazing offering to be able to provide, emerging innovators and entrepreneurs, because it can be heartbreaking to go through that. There are a lot of companies that don't trade at that level of ethics. They will just, you give them the brief and they will just deliver on the brief, and they're not asking. They're not thinking about long term how that might impact you as an individual. So that's really amazing to hear. We've got a question here from Stephanie Alsevsky. She's asking, have you helped a friend to the point where you have to start charging them? Can you talk about how you managed their expectations in the situation?
So whether you've had a client who, a friend who you've done some work for at no charge, and then it's turned out to be something much bigger, and then you've had to have the conversation with them about, actually, this is going to cost money now.
I don't really think that's a problem for us. I mean, there's times where we offer even non-friends advice for free, but there's a fairly clear line that we've defined that you have to start paying after that point, because our industry attracts people. Everyone's got a great idea, and not to be disrespectful, that's fantastic, but we run a business, and there has to be a point in which people sign on or don't sign on. So that sounds harsher than it really is, but that's the reality. It's good to have all these concepts and ideas, but unless you're willing to back it up with putting some money on the table and back it up with the commitment, then the chance of success is very low. So friends, family, I think it's all the same basically.
So how do you deal with the tire kickers then? As you say, there's lots of people who have ideas and they really like talking about them. What's the kind of strategy that you use to sort of say, that's great, but...
Well, we offer workshops. They're a low cost entry point. I mean, our sign of whether people are serious is whether they're going to put some money down on the table. If you don't have money, you can't do it. It's really sad. Unless you have money or you can source money, it takes a lot of money to develop products all the way through to getting it into the market. Marketing budgets can be way more expensive than our budget. People don't even understand that. So you look at telemarketing products, half those things are junk, but they just market the daylights out of them. So we do rule a line in the sand where we have very low cost entry level items from expert hour. So we'll give them an hour of our time, and we'll give them 3 key steps that they can take to move forward, which is really low cost, through different stage workshops with different deliverables. So that's our litmus test essentially.
Oh, that's a great strategy. Lauren Eade's got a question. Do you have any advice for combining entrepreneurship and parenting?
Yes, I bet you my wife's watching this because she wrote another really interesting comment about how she's a superhero, which she is. That's a good question, Lauren. I have 4 children, so balancing work and life and entrepreneurship is extremely difficult, I would say. I still work 12, 13, 14 hours a day, plus I'm renovating a house at the same time. So it's crazy, but I think having a clear plan is the way that you manage that, like a list essentially, because you can't retain all that information in your head, and you need to somewhat be able to disconnect from work to manage your life. Because I mean, my kids are 8 and under, so 8 to ranging from 8 till 2. So it's a great time, and I don't want to miss that. But also, I've got a business that is growing at 230% every year. So it's a challenge, but I'm not sure I've mastered that. So
we might have to do an interview with your wife.
I think that'd be good.
Get the other side of the story. Usually, amazing entrepreneurs with families have amazing partners as well in life too. I would say.
Most definitely. Amy is amazing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think she's sort of the unseen face of Design Anthology, and her strategy and her ability to she's just got a real ability to have to troubleshoot and put together the big picture, which I trust. Essentially, we're very fortunate. We don't argue about too many things. We agree on things, and we're also very open to taking a knee when you don't entirely agree, because you trust that other person. So yeah, I think for me, I'm married up essentially. So, like I said at the beginning, it's not just about me. Like, I've got a great team, and that's what helps as well. Having trust in your team is important, because it enables you then to do other things without the fear that your whole enterprise will fall in a heap, so.
Yes, Amy had asked a question. I've heard awesome things about your wife. She sounds like a superhero. Tell us about her. Just joking. I am the wife.
Very good.
So I've got a couple more questions for you. We've got about 9 more minutes left before we clock off. But one question here from Chris Hickey is, as a company offering key services to innovation, how do you find innovation in the Hunter compares to further afield?
I think it's comparable. I think the Hunter's got great. It's got a great ecosystem of innovation. I think what we're very bad at in the Hunter, and we're getting better at, is promoting ourselves and promoting our key strengths. So I know there's a lot of people working on that, and that's something that we need to do more of, because we have the smarts, we have the pedigree. We just need to get it out there, and I think one of the things we really need to do is commercialise, have a real strong focus on commercialising, so we actually have those success stories. So most definitely, it's a great area. It's fantastic.
Have you've always grown up in the Hunter region, Josh?
No, my workmate said not to mention this, because I think he said that my business will go downhill after this. But
Sorry to ask the question then.
I grew up in Dubbo. I'm a country boy.
Okay, better than Sydney. I thought you were going to say Sydney.
Yeah. No, I'm from the country originally, so yeah.
I don't know how that would destroy your business at all. I think, and we find a lot of people. I guess many people are transplants to the Hunter region, whether it's from Sydney or regional New South Wales or elsewhere.
Yeah.
And just following on from your point there around the Hunter being a really great place to innovate. We are seeing a lot more people moving up from Sydney, at least inquiries for incubation at our hub. There's many more people who are moving up to the Hunter region because they've heard good things.
Yeah.
So that's a really great sign.
Yeah.
Ben Lever asks, does your team have experience in servicing the agricultural sector? And if so, what sort of innovation is happening there?
Not directly. My background was in that industry, and food industries and advanced manufacturing. So not of recent. We've had contact with some local innovative companies working in that space, but not at the moment. So there's lots happening in that space. There's LoRaWAN, 5G is going to change everything within that space. Automation is changing things within that space, even down to spectrometers that can analyse grain samples and all these different sorts of technologies. They can actually analyse it live and essentially enable farmers to manage that process of growing the best crops with the least input. So look, there's heaps. It's something that we were really interested in getting into that space, just because that's my background. So it's sort of a bit of a passion for me. But yeah, there's definitely lots happening in that space.
Yeah, we've got a startup called Hone, previously known as Rapid Phenotyping, that has built on that light spectroscopy technology with the handheld device. But also too, I think if that person, Ben, is interested in other opportunities, you've got the GATE accelerator that's run through the Department of Primary Industries in Central West New South Wales, as well as the University of New England's Smart Region Incubator, which is focused on ag tech technologies as well, and startups in that space too. So they've got hubs at Armidale, Tamworth, and Moree, I think. But they offer a whole range of different networking and workshop opportunities as well. So I'd highly recommend checking out those too. We've got one last question here that was asked as part of the Regos, and then if we've got time, we might be able to take one or two more from the Q&A box down below. But this is from Andrew Rutherford from Branson. He's asking, from your experience, what is the bigger risk to the success of product-based startup? An invalid idea with a poor problem solution fit, or an inability to successfully execute, build and deliver?
That's actually a good question. I actually spent a bit of time thinking about that one. I actually think it's both. I think what's missing from that question is is not understanding the market. So in the first instance, so, you know, poor fit solution, a problem solution fit, which I suppose derives, if you don't understand your customer, sorry, I'm rambling a bit here, then essentially you're never going to arrive at that point. So you're going to fail because the solution isn't going to be warranted, or people aren't going to want to pay for it. It's just going to not work. So I think that's important. Yeah, look, I don't know. The short answer to that question is both, because I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of steps in the process. It requires a lot of patience, drive, grit, determination to get all the way through. So yes, you've got to understand your customer. You've got to provide them with a good solution, but you've got to be willing to get to the end. So hopefully that answers that question.
I think it's a really smart answer, because I agree, both are really important. You need to be able to get that problem solution fit, and then you need to be able to execute on the findings you get from your customer discovery as well.
Yeah.
And of course, importantly, you need a business model to back it up too. So it's a great idea to find problem solution fit, but if you can't make it work financially, then you don't really have a business either.
No.
So we'll just jump into one or two questions from the Q&A. Boris Novak's asked, do you have growth aspirations? And assuming you do, are you open to investors to help you scale?
Good question. Definitely growth aspirations. Not entirely sure about investment. The reason for that is, look, I like being the master of my own shit. Do you know what I mean? We're bootstrapped, we're cash positive. We kind of go off the German model where we've put money away, we've self-funded, and we invest in ourselves. So yes, it's not, it's possible, but right now probably not. I don't know whether we need it, to be quite honest.
Yeah, that's a really valid answer, right? You know, some people prefer to be able to maintain all the equity in the company so they can make the decisions. Yeah. Sometimes there's just not an opportunity that an investor could provide you enough cash that you'd scale too quickly too. So, you know, it's a personal preference, right?
Yeah. I think the other answer to that question is that part of the thing that we've established some really, really simple products through the whole process that we've developed ourselves, and they will spin them out on the side, if that makes sense. So yes, investment potential for those sorts of activities, but for the core business, I don't know. Well, maybe.
Well, on that note, thank you so much, Josh, for your time. We're just about to hit 9 o'clock. I just wanted to reiterate everyone's comments in the chat about what a fantastic startup stories this has been, and your insight and your honesty has been really, really welcomed and appreciated. So thank you so much for your time. I did just want to quickly share a couple of opportunities that we've got coming up here at the I2N. If I can find my share button. Sorry, just one second. So we've got Startup Stories next month with Eric Kissy, who is the founder or co-founder of MGA Thermal, which is a startup that's working out of or incubating out of I2N Hub Hunter Street. They've been through the On Prime and On Accelerate programs through CSIRO and have got some incredible traction already, including some early stage seed funding that they just received a couple of months ago, which is amazing. So join us for that on the 5th of August at 8 a.m. We also have for startups, SMEs and established companies that are experiencing the uncertainty that is COVID. We have some great video resources online from our innovation expert, Claire Quigley. So there's the Creating Value in Uncertainty 3-part video series. And we've just had another one last week, a 1-hour video series, Zoom with Claire, which is about emerging from COVID. So some really great frameworks and strategies there, because I think if it hasn't already dawned on you already, we're in this for the long haul with COVID. It's going to present challenges to us over a couple of years, I think, rather than, you know, us being able to be back to normal if and when a vaccine arrives. So check out that series. Richard is posting links in the chat to these opportunities. Also Navigator, which is our very, very early stage, first stage program for individuals who are looking to explore their impact potential. So if you've got an area of interest or an idea and you want to explore what potential there might be for it, this is a great program for you to understand fundamental lean startup principles like value proposition, doing a little elevator pitch, and being able to speak to potential customers to get their insights. Applications for this close on Sunday, so I'd highly encourage you to get your apps in as soon as possible. The program runs from the 28th to the 30th of July. And Validator is the next stage program. So this is essentially a pre-accelerator program, and it's modeled very much on the CSIRO's on-prime program, which is no longer running. So this is for research teams. It's also for emerging entrepreneurs that have an idea and want to really deep dive massively into customer discovery and business models, and also developing out what their product or service could look like, so that when you go to someone like Josh, you'll have a really great brief and get the most out of that first workshop that he runs. And that program commences on the 7th of September, and we've got apps closing next month. So that's it from the I2N. Again, thank you so much, Josh. Really appreciate it. Thanks to everyone for sticking around just past 9 o'clock, and we look forward to seeing you at the next Startup Stories next month.
Thank you, Siobhan. Thank you, Richard. Thanks for everyone that attended.
Have a great day, everyone.